Hey guys, so someone's working on a Game Boy and they're running into trouble with the areas marked in red here. And so we're just going to start modeling some of this. I'm going to talk about what can go into creating a Game Boy possibly as well. But we're just going to be focusing mostly on that bottom right corner there. So first things first, let's just copy this, get the copy paste add-on for Blender. It's going to save you a bunch of headaches and trouble. Get rid of the cube for a second. And Control Shift V, I can just paste it in here. Okay, and I'm going to try to align it into the center. I probably could have kept the cube. Alt Z, turn that on. It's not a beginner tutorial, just keep that in mind. It's for you guys trying to do subdivision on more complex things like this, perhaps. All right, so first, blocking of something like this, not really as challenging as it could be. It's more or less a square, right? So this artist has also, by the looks of it, already lined everything up, which is great. So your references, you can just duplicate and rotate and do things like that. Okay. And if you don't want to see the back sides of these, you can set it to front only. Could also be useful. So when I'm lining these things up, I might just leave them kind of like in this area for now, but I'm going to push them out later on so they're not in the way as much. And we need to rotate this side one here. You see, this is the top. So we'll duplicate and rotate on Y, hold Control, rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to be placing this in alignment with that seam in the middle. Not that it really matters that much, but it can be useful because now you can see this one also is going to be in alignment at the seam. Hopefully they all line up just right. We'll see what we can get into. We also have the back side here. If you really wanted to, you could take this and I'm just going to rotate it over. You can see it's in alignment already almost by the looks of it. So that'll be the top side there. So if we ever need to see it from this side, there you go. We got the bottom, we got the front, and the side. All right, cool. Let's pull these out so they're not as much in the way. Make sure they're just, when you're moving, they're in the right axes. Okay. So now our cube, it's not going to be perfect. It's hard to get things perfect, especially off of a perspective image. Even though it's very, very flat, it still has a slight perspective to it. So we're pretty much there. We could probably just kind of eyeball what's going on here. All right, now this is the problem that more than likely they're running into is that the bottom edge here, you can see that's a little bit off, right? The bottom edge, or like this area right here, see? It's beveled, right? There's a slight taper to it maybe as well. But that's going to be tricky because now we're going to need a little bevel here, a big bevel there, and somewhere in here it transitions and you get this kind of weird angle thing going on here. So for me anyways, I like to model things as simple as possible. So if I can break this into two parts, I'll worry about the bottom side later. And we'll focus on the top side first. And so I know that I need this corner like this. So I'm just going to bevel it and try to keep it minimal, about 4 segments for now. You could go a little bit higher if you want, but more vertices means usually harder to work with. So I'm just going to bevel it like this. When it subdivides, it will lose a little bit of volume. So you may even stop a little bit short of that. It might be a possibility, but I think it'll be all right. We'll be okay. All right. Now this cutout here, like it's kind of a little taper that's going on. We'll hide this for a second. So this is interesting because a lot of you probably don't realize this, but if you like create a cube and you're going to use this as a Boolean object, right? So we'll use this as a Boolean object. We can kind of line this up right here, rotate it in object mode. And then we can use local orientation. We're going to do our Boolean. And if we have a non-manifold mesh, which we have, no backside faces here. Remember, I do backface colon so that it doesn't show like that. We do our Boolean though. Eventually, as long as there's like a kind of like a shell going on, it should Boolean still. And you might have to change it to exact and use hole tolerant as well, possibly. But for right now, fast seems to be working. So, but once we do that Boolean, we can rotate on its local axes on say X. And you'll see that we have this little marker now, this wireframe. This is why it's important to turn wireframes on. Set it to a hotkey so you can turn it on and off. But we can line this up very quickly into this area, and we can check whether we have enough depth to it or not as well. So you can see, like, is this rotated? We can't rotate on the view. We need to rotate on X, right? So we can rotate on X, change that orientation a little bit, and do something like this perhaps, and just chiseling out that little corner there. So when a lot of times you're doing subdivision, you're still using booleans. This is an excellent little example of that. And we might have to move it around a little bit, check it, make sure it's good. Look for that little wire frame where it cuts it. And you'll probably apply the boolean. You can get rid of that later on. And so that's the top part, right? Simple enough for now. Okay, so the edges here, all of these are beveled about in unison, like they look pretty simple. So I'm just going to bevel everything right here on this and this corner. This may come back to bite us a little bit later on, but I'm going to bevel it all at the same time and do 2 segments like that, right? So 2 segments and just try to maintain that bevel shape like that. Okay. You can see this one does it. It probably might be better to do that one later because it's not quite as big of a bevel, I would say. So maybe we do that one later. And we just bevel all that. Okay. Right. Now we could bevel this one independently and just make it a little bit sharper perhaps when we get this kind of result here. Okay. All right. Now, at some point, these ones will more than likely go down below. So you can press K and Z, knife cut it up. You'll do something like that. I'm going to try to keep some momentum here so that we can get through this. All right, let's do shift right click right there, create a cube, go into edit mode, scale it, go back to object mode and rotate it so that we can have local orientation. Now we can use local, go S and then X, rotate it a little bit more. I'm going to array it using hard ops, but you can just click and add an array modifier and modifier panel, right? Just going to line these up the best I can. I can scale them out on Y. Okay. And we're going to need, like if it's quads, we can just add a loop cut right here. Dead center, we can bevel it later. The main thing is I want to rotate the object so that it lines up all the way through with that edge. And now once we've done that, we're good to go. We can take these, we can bevel these, hit C to clamp it, 2 segment probably. And then that should be fine there. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the array. Whoops, sorry, not the array. I'm going to go into edit mode, AM merge by distance, because we have doubles in there. So we got to get rid of those doubles. And this is where it gets interesting because we know this is going to boolean into this area here. So we do the quick boolean, right? You set the depth for the main piece. This, according to the reference, if we were to look at it a little bit closer, they do change direction slightly. There's a bend in there basically. So now what we can do is we can grab all of this in section here like that. Hit 2, select by edge, select that edge. We can use, let's say normal and active element. So when you shift double tap, you see it becomes active. That's your last selection. We hit RY. We can rotate that down from there. Okay. So this is how you start working these kinds of things like this a lot of times. It's not so pretty. Like it's a little bit confusing because you got to think about a lot of things that you're going to end up doing. Like, are you going to use booleans? How many edges do you need? All that other fun stuff, right? And the big blocked shape is probably the most important part. The rest of this is just going to come down to working it manually for the most part. So at some point we'll get to the bottom as well, which will be more challenging. But all right, so let's say we do the boolean. Oh, before we go any further, let's bring the boolean shape back using hard ops Q and E. Click it. We're going to bevel this. You can see the position here. We can change that position a little bit if we wanted to, like G and We'll use local again and medium point. We can press G and Y. We can just kind of rock it towards the middle, maybe somewhere in there. I think that'll be fun. So now we're just going to apply the Boolean, get rid of our Boolean shape. We have this. Oh, no, before we apply the Boolean, I keep skipping this step. I was wanting to bevel this, right? 2 segment. Get it approximately correct so that they line up with each other and they're about the same size, you see? So if you got to move it a little bit, then so be it. But that's close enough, right? Okay. Now here's the fun part. We can apply the Boolean. We can get rid of the Boolean shape if we wanted. Save it for later, maybe. Who knows? But we got to merge a bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, I don't know a super fast way of merging all of these except just by doing them. So if you want to, you could turn on vertex snapping, right? And you could turn on auto merge right there. And now you just move them, right? And just pull them where you need them. And as soon as you snap them to each other, they'll merge. That's the fastest way I know anyways. Unless you want to try doing some kind of like merge by distance, but then that'll probably throw your normals of the flats or make it non-planar for the flat sections. So don't do that maybe. All right. But yeah, this gets into the meat and potatoes of subdivision when it really doesn't go the way you expect it to. Because while it's nice to create perfect quads everywhere, these types of meshes, a lot of times when you start adding lots and lots of details, it's really just about trying to get something that, you know, works. And it doesn't always mean like perfect looking topo. Although if you spend enough time on it, I'm sure you can make it perfect looking, but it depends on the purpose of your mesh too. Like how much time you have to work on it, and are you going to be able to just sit there and finesse the topology by the end of it? Maybe, maybe not, who knows? So a lot of these you can just press J, join them together. Like so. And we'll just join all these real quick. Like that. It's not to say that we'll end up going with that topo necessarily. We might change it. We might not. Who knows? Whatever we feel works best in our modeling project, right? All right. A little bit of manual work, though. And that's one of the fun things about doing things with arrays. A lot of times, you know, like, could you copy the topo from one to the next and next? Yeah, but trying to get it in all in alignment and stuff gets kind of messy. So it might be worthwhile to just kind of knock out some other things as well. If you think it would, you know, benefit you to do it first, you know, like Booleans are, you know, a lot of times you'll probably end up using a Boolean, making your shapes. You see, I rotated this in edit mode. I think I did anyways. So I probably won't. Oh no, I didn't. All right. Anyways, if you rotate in edit mode, you don't get local orientation. So you don't get to move in this direction like that. All right. But you can see we can kind of work this out a little bit. You can see it's right there. It's probably too deep. We can do the Boolean. If we wanted to, we can even try to array this. So arrays for this would be kind of interesting. You'd probably just do it like that and then change, in this case, Y. Right? So you can see what's going to happen there. If you wanted them perfectly in alignment, that's just one thing you could do. In our case here, I'm going to bevel the edges first. So I'm selecting those edges. You just can't see it real well. Hit C to clamp it. And we're just making that pill shape first, right? Sometimes you got to be mindful of loop slide. You might want to turn that off. I think we're okay. I don't know if it beveled wrong or right. It looks right. Okay. AM merge by distance. We're going to bevel the back side too. We're going to do that. And I think this is a little bit more shallow in nature. So I'm not sure the exact shape here, but I'm going to guess that it's just tapered slightly. Even if you're baking high to low polys, it's good to taper things a slight bit like that maybe. I probably could have, there's another way of doing that because sometimes it throws the angles. You might do like an inset first and then dissolve, then grab that, then bevel it. Okay, little things like that can happen. Just rock it up to the top. It looks more correct to me. All right. So this is what we're looking at, Boolean Ngon, right? At first, a lot of times it's easier to do Boolean NGON and then convert it to a subdivision instead of trying to do everything with subdivision right off the bat. But you could make this as like a mid poly. It would probably work out just fine. This is going to be a much more challenging piece in here than these ones because it's more like a squished spherical shape. We're not going to try to model those, I think, for now. But yeah, we got that going. That's the main thing. So let's bring back that shape real quick. And so a lot of times I just do these kind of things manually. I kind of eyeball it, figure out what's going on here a little bit. In our case, I'll use 4 segments. We're going to leave it at the same width here. We're not going to change that around. But I have no problem whatsoever like borrowing an edge like this and using it as a Boolean, basically. Like I'll grab that whole edge, duplicate the edge, separate it, grab the edge, and now I will just extrude it down like this. Okay. And then I'll grab all of this. I'm going to press E, bring it out, scale it. S, Shift Z when scaling, keep it all flat. A, Alt N, recalculate outside. We'll get that. We could do the Boolean subtraction. You see it doesn't work because it's not, it's got a hole in it basically. So press AF, fill that. It should almost work. QE, you might have to expand it out a little. In our case, this is also not filled correctly. Apparently I did some things wrong here. Let's fill the back side of it. Let's see if it actually cuts it out now. AN merge by distance. Bring it up a tiny bit. See if that works. If not, this is usually when your wireframes match too close to each other. Use exact instead, right? So this is that angle that's being generated here on the side. You can see it's a little bit off, and I'm probably going to have to tweak or finesse that maybe to get that to work even better. But this, remember, like I'm lined up here on this one now. And on this one, it's not lined up. So your reference images can play a big role in this. Unfortunately, they never are usually right. So you're always going to run into these kinds of little situations where it's like, you know, it's just not quite there, right? And that's okay. So as long as it looks the part, I think a lot of times when you're modeling things, especially for games, close enough is usually good enough. I mean, as long as it's not like obviously incorrect, right? That's just something I think. So, you know, if we wanted to tweak it, maybe it does look a little too thin or something. We just go right up to that top section, just drag all that down a little bit. That'll be closer, right? So maybe the other one is a little bit incorrect or something. Who knows? But you can see that we did that. And now we got all this other stuff over here we still have to bevel. And that's just going to complicate the process, I think. So also, these don't quite line up with each other the way that we probably think they should. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to a holding edge and just cut it out here. And this is so that I can fluctuate this position here without it changing the whole edge. You know what I'm saying? So like I can just throw that back there. It won't really matter. If I throw that one there, it won't really matter. But you do want to make sure you go the right direction with these usually. And you have the same amount of segments, hopefully. I think we got a little bit of a problem here with this one. But it's close. It's just not quite right. I'm going to pull that one down. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Might need to add an extra edge somewhere. Let's see. Let's see what we can do. I do like this one. I think I'm going to run it back on Y. I do like this one too. I'm going to run it on Y as well. And yeah, I really feel that needs to go to there. That needs to go to there maybe. We got an extra edge here. We go to there. And then, so we end up with like an extra one just chilling down here. I think what I'm going to do, if it's in alignment, it is, maybe we pull this one over and it kind of moves it a little bit. What do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We could, that's 7. I'm just trying to figure out like if I can do a reduction somewhere. That's like our center edge, I think. Yeah, so we can probably run it up later if needed. Because right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, I mean, that's pretty good. I think this edge can go. I think we could just get rid of it. I don't think most people would notice it gone. It kind of is noticeable, though. Yeah, so maybe we'll get rid of it. We'll balance things out if needed. But that's what that's looking like anyway. So, all right. And so, because of what we just did, eventually we'll do another like holding edge down here, possibly. That'll create kind of our bevel shape, right? We can do that over here as well. If we did Korean bevels on this, where it's like a shape of a profile of 1, where it's all squared up looking, this would make more sense here for this one to also do that. But since we didn't do that here, we'll have to like just round it out and match the other one, or we'll have to square out the top. It's either or. You're going to have to do one or the other. But for the most part, there we go. We got it started. And so I don't think we're ready to test it with subdivision just yet, but it's getting close. And we'll send that one forward on Y. Let's get rid of that snapping for a second. Let's press K, Y, send it out. We got 3 edges there now. All right, so the fun begins this next section right here when we got to close this up. So what I'm going to do temporarily is I'm going to do KCAs. I'm going to cut out this area. Not that we have to do this right now. This is just to keep this localized, so I'm not working the whole shape right now. So we can take a look at what we do with the quads in here. Now, in general, these things have edge flows, or they're going to want to have edge flows that kind of go out in these directions like this, right? That's kind of what they're trying to do. And so we're going to have to find ways to either reduce them or redirect them or just make this stuff start to work out. Like you can see that one wants to go over to there. We could just cut it over to here for now. I probably need to get that Boolean and add it to it. But you see what's going on, right? Let me space bar that real quick. Apply that Boolean so those become effect. Those in fact do take effect there. We'll just do our knife cut across. Should be able to reduce that one now. Yeah. Control exit, get rid of it. Okay. And notice that these ones go like left to right as well. This one's going to want to do the same thing. It's going to want to go out to this direction somewhere. You can roll these over the edge downwards like that. Usually doesn't cause a big problem. Okay. And as a result, a lot of this stuff is going to want to do that same thing. So when you're thinking of subdivision, remember breaking quads into n-gons is one of those things I kind of talk about a lot in my little topo demos or whatever. Break them into n-gons or breaking n-gons into quads, excuse me. This is just part of that process for the most part. This becomes more challenging when things are curved, but right now you can see how it works on this more hard surface shape. It's much easier to deal with because this is a flat piece here. You know, it was just a Boolean. We didn't do nothing special there with that. And like this one, we could run maybe backwards a little bit just to keep it off the curve, or we could have redirected it or something. I don't know if that'll work. I think it'll deform the shape a little bit, but we'll see. If it works, it works, right? And we'll run with it. Otherwise, it might cause problems. So these are going to want to do something like an inset, more than likely. Okay. So just keep that in mind. More than likely, they're going to want to do something like an inset like this. Okay. There's a good odd chance that's how they're going to work out. Something similar to that anyways. That's not to say it's the optimal topology. You got to fiddle around with it sometimes to find better results, but it's going to be more or less like they're trying to reduce maybe. What you'll see is when you connect those together, we get quads between all of them now. We're going to have additional edges running forward still. Keep hitting shift apparently. Let's merge that. Okay. So we might do that. We might even try doing this, but I don't know if that'll work just yet. Ultimately, we're going to have to make judgment calls on what we do with all this stuff. Like, do we combine these together and make a quad here like that? We could. I mean, so you have to fiddle around with the topo and get kind of the topo that you think would work best for you, right? And I can't say that 100% that I know exactly which one you're going for or what would work best in your situation. From all the topo, I looked at this model on some of the marketplaces, the Game Boy model, the Game Boy models that exist out there anyways. And a lot of them just, you know, they're doing whatever it takes to turn things into quads here in the middle. The topologies are not very similar. So I'd suspect that it's just some more challenging shape for the subdivision in general. And I think that's something worth mentioning too, and realizing is that when you are trying to make a 3D model, and it's something that's pretty common or that a lot of people have already worked on, is nothing that says you can't just go like look at a marketplace and take a look at maybe what are some of the solutions that they came up with for their own topology and see if some of that would make sense for you as well. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. But we're basically isolating it. We're kind of localizing everything here. And you can see how that's starting to work out. Okay. We just don't want these running over into this beveled area. If we had more segments for the bevel, it might be nicer. So that, but we can still do some reductions possibly and get this all to work out fairly well. So let's just go for it and see what we end up with. I like to just connect these ones, these middle sections, to like the thing that I think would make the most sense. So like maybe there to there, there to there. Yes, it's skewed a little to the left, but I think those work out quite fine. And that's not too bad. And like I was saying, those 3-to-1 type reductions like that half inset in these areas could also maybe work out. I mean, it's a possibility. You can see that makes it N-gon though. Maybe we don't do that one like that. That one can go to there. And this one can go to there. That'll make that a quad. Okay. Let's see if we can just run these around like this real quick. Okay. So it's creating like a little crazy topo there, but it's okay. This one's still problematic. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, you just got to fiddle with things sometimes and just see, you know, if you can get something working. That's usually how I do it anyways. I mean, maybe you don't do this, who knows? But that's what I usually do. And if it works, it works. I think we were kind of on the right path there at the beginning. And all we'd have to do is just kind of repeat that process a little bit. And we'll probably be able to work some of this out. And it'll just be really crazy looking topo. That's about all that's going to happen. So that could be like a quad right there, maybe. As long as you don't have poles near the edge, I think you'll be okay. You can see this one even. We can do another inset with it. All right. Boom. These should be, they should be loops or not. Let's connect this out to there. We'll leave a triangle there for a second. I should be able to alt click here and select all the way around unless we don't, oh, we didn't merge. Yeah. We might have missed some of those. So if it doesn't select as a loop like that, you see, that could be because we didn't merge something. So I'm just going to alt shift click through here. Remember, I use select loops, boundary loops, loop inner regions. I do that a lot. So boundary loop select, set it to a shortcut. It's really useful. And when I do this bevel here, whoop, you can see we had an issue over here apparently. Did not see it. That one to that one. Let's try selecting those again from this side. And if we see an error again, we'll be okay. Oh, there's one over here. All right, so we should be good now. Let's try this again. Yeah, so, I mean, these things are complicated sometimes, like these shapes, right? Boundary select, boom. Bevel it. Okay, you might have some issues with loop slide. Check that out. A little bit of a different result. Maybe you want to do it like that. Maybe you don't. Who knows? I think I'm going to leave it off on this one. Okay. Now, if you have hard ops, you can do, let's see, mesh tools, poly debug. Is it? No, it's under settings. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not there. Where's this thing at? No, it's in here somewhere. Operations, maybe? Oh, polygon debug under operations. Always forget where it's at. So this is going to show you errors. And like, obviously we got, you know, stuff going on up there. We got stuff going on in here. The heck? All right, we'll take a look at that later. Ngon. Join. We get 2 triangles, loop cut. There you go. Do another inset right there. I don't really like that solution, but yeah, it's doable, I guess. If we join that, we get a triangle. Join that, we get a triangle. That becomes a quad. That stays a triangle. We'd have to find another triangle to connect it to, and we don't have one right now. So, or we can merge something and try to work it out. Doing that maybe. So it's one of those things, like you just got to get in this weird habit of like trying to balance things. I'm going to subdivide an edge and see if I can't do something to work this out. Oh, that would create a triangle, of course. We'll figure that out later. I try not to get too hung up on things like that, because usually there's a solution. You just don't see it right away. And when you come back, you'll see it. And it'll be like, oh, well, I should have just did this. Yeah, so take a break from problematic areas sometimes and come back to them. Why these all turned red is because, oh, okay. We got to close out these sides here. Those will be like that, but you can loop cut those down the middle later, like this, and turn them into quads. So that won't be a big deal. I don't know if we even need to bevel the bottom of it right yet. It'd probably be better not to, because there's a tiny little cut in here that takes place. This is when you'd probably do that when you take this up a level of subdivision, and it would make more sense at that time. And I don't know. It was looking like it was going to work out, but it didn't work out. Yeah, there's definitely some way in here that we can work that one out. There's a lot of excess in here as well. It's too much going on. These ones are looking pretty good. They're not too bad. Just going to do cut across. We can try doing more reductions if needed. You'll start seeing that those turn into quads like that. You see? So these are always fun things that you can do. Like these are 2 triangles, connect them. That would be like another inset, right? But it's cut through there, you know? So those topos and those topo guides, they are useful. Like you could use them, but it's not like you need to make your shapes first, you know, and figure out what you're trying to do before you start doing all that nonsense. You see, like little by little, we can just start working things out, making it happen. Boom. Same for these ones over here, right? Like if I split it right down the middle. Yeah, it's a process, guys. It takes time, and it takes a lot of manual effort sometimes on some shapes. This Game Boy, I think, is a really good, challenging project for beginners. If you're going to try to like approach doing it with subdivision, maybe not beginners, maybe as you start to get more comfortable with subdivision. See, like we got the triangle here. Like, how can we prevent that? Well, we stop short and do this and then connect that out to there, right? That's going to give us a quad like that. We join out to there. Now we got this nonsense. We got this little triangle taking effect. So like, are there ways of working this kind of stuff out? I mean, I think there are. It's just that you have to sometimes deform your shapes a little bit more than you probably would realize or think you could or should. You can see like we created an Ngon. Oh no, that's not good. But it's almost flat there. So we could potentially run over that corner. It probably wouldn't be the end of the world. I'll put it that way. Right? So that's a possibility. Not that you will do that, but you might. Okay, and what's going on over here? Oh, okay. We'll just take that one down for now. This one, let's take it to the extreme. Let's just toss it way over there. Oh, that didn't work out. Let's toss that to there, that to there, and keep going. Yeah, creating a bunch of little triangles is probably not the best idea either, but you know, that will work out later on. Not the end of the world for that one. I'm going to connect that one down to there. Get rid of that. We can almost push that down, and then this might get a little squirrely if we do this, but I'm thinking we could. I want to connect that to like there somehow. Yeah, see? Now that's a pretty big shift. I don't know if that would work out very well, but maybe we can balance it doing something like that. You know, maybe that works out better. So when that subdivides at some point, it might work out. I'm going to do that. Just fun with topo, right? This is the best way of learning, in my opinion, is like playing on planes in very basic shapes. Don't get too caught up in everything. Like I'm going to redirect this out this way so I don't run to the bottom, right? And that redirect kind of works, except we need a quad there. So you see like that whole corner, suddenly it works, right? At some point, it would be nice to have more geo in this area, but you see we create that big triangle area. Not the end of the world. But we're getting things going at least, right? I'm going to connect this somewhere out to there. That'll go to there. Yeah, it'll be a little triangle there for a sec. It'll be all right. Eventually, these will probably all start shifting upwards anyway, so it's not the end of the world here for these ones, but you can see how that starts to work out. Cut that over to there. Merge that out to there. Dissolve that. And yeah, like this will probably shift. And it'll probably be closer. I mean, there's no reason to drag them out as far as I am, but what's going on with this one? What is this? Get rid of you. All right. See, my flow is kind of going all over the place. And that's just something you'll have to get used to. Like there will be times that, you know, your topology just does not work out as cleanly as you would like. And it's going to take extra edges, or it's going to get denser than you probably wished. And that happens, you know, flows in ways that you don't want it to. All kinds of just nonsense can happen. You can see, boom, 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 and we'll do the joins there. We'll bring that back in. These should be a little bit closer like that. They shouldn't be so far out like that. This one, yeah, in the middle would probably be better for those two. All right, yeah, so at some point this will go out here, probably create a quad. That'll probably be a quad. We'll end up with that. All right, and so, yeah, just little by little, and that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to shade it smooth, subdivide it one time, and we should see that we might get some errors still. Subdivision with that poly debug, by the way, looks terrible, so turn it off. And we can see for the most part, it's kind of doing right. The only thing here, though, is that I really need loops through this area. And I don't want them cutting through this one right there, going all the way back up the top. So I'm going to dissolve that. I'm just going to do a couple cuts in there until we get like little squares, basically. Right? Like that's all we need for the most part, something like that. And as a result, like we could do a little bit of reductions over here so it doesn't run out that many extra edge loops. I mean, it might be useful. Oops, let's try it again. But yeah, we could do that if we wanted to, just so we don't have so many to work with later on. And that might save us a little frustration, perhaps. You can see, like, we don't need all that, right? Doesn't make that much sense. You're trying to balance this so that there's squares too. Just keep that in mind. The big problem here, though, is that this end pole is really close to this edge. So when it subdivides, it could fluctuate the edge just a tiny bit. You might have to push it out with another, like another edge in here, like double padding, basically. So that, like, your pole would be up here now, not, and that fluctuates that edge much less. You see the difference here? I don't know if you can see it. Turn optimal display off. We're looking at, this is going to be a little straighter here, and this fluctuates outwards like that, right? So that's something you may actually want to do. Now, there's different kind of ideas on how you might go about achieving that. Personally, I like selecting all this, and then I'll just inset and hit O, and I'll do outsets a lot of times and just add double padding that way. And as long as it doesn't go crazy, which it is in my case, you'll be okay. Now, the reason usually it goes crazy, I have edge rail on by default. Edge rail can cause problems. Sometimes offset even will even cause problems. So, but you'll see that now we have a nice, really clean kind of cut through there. And so if we're going to do that on that one, it would help to do it on all of them so that they all match a little bit better. But I'm going to be lazy about it for this video. And I'm going to just go up. You know what? Did I not merge those and reduce it? Or did I reduce it and get rid of my little triangle there? I think I got rid of it. All right, whatever. We'll go back and do that again. Okay, so go right up to that end pole on the back side there. We inset, hit O, do a tiny little outset. Edge rail will be back on, so it's going to mess me up for a moment. But yeah, just a really tiny little detail there. You could also try maybe using like creases or something, but we'll save that kind of stuff for another video maybe. All right, triangle. End pole, redirect, boom, right? You can see like this one here, we could redirect, send it up. Done like that. And you're probably thinking like, what? Why do that? Not that we had to necessarily. It's just the idea that you can do things like that if you wanted to. Like, so we got this crazy edge flow now. I don't think it actually helps us at all. I really want two edges in here. We already have two edges in here. We'd have to just GG twice them around, place them where needed. You see? And that's kind of doing what I want. Kind of. We could try reducing in this area. I'm going to run them through for a second to where I want them. And we can run these two to that triangle maybe, right? So that turns into that there. Now it's going to be a triangle, of course. I mean, we could redirect it, but it depends on, you know, if you can tolerate that end pole or not. Just remember, like some of your meshes you're working on, like in this case, we're probably not going to displace this thing, right? There's a good odd chance we're not. But if we were, these poles will wreak havoc with displacement or sculpting, right? So trying to work it out into more perfect quads everywhere would be the name of the game. In that case, you're going to run a lot of stuff over the edges probably, and trying to get those poles a little bit more near the edges perhaps. You can see like we can solve a lot of those like just weird little issues by just adding in additional edges and making it more like this maybe. You can see like this edge running through would probably not hurt. So this is how you can start to like grid things up really nice like. And it's just worth learning how to do that as well. Like you just really want to know the ins and the outs of creating a quad topo. I mean, it's the difference between that messy stuff we just had and doing it nicer is not that big of a difference. It just requires more edge cuts and it just means more work basically. So for like baking purposes, game models that you're just trying to get done really fast, you know, you can leave it messier. Usually it doesn't matter because you're probably not going to deform it later on. But it's not always the case. Like, see, some of this stuff you probably reduce, get rid of even. Like, there's no sense in keeping some of it, so we can clean it up like that. But basically, you're getting the idea at this point. Like this, the mesh that you're working with when you're trying to create subdivision mesh, like a lot of manual work can go into it, pushing and pulling of vertices and polygons and all that. But it's flexible. Like it's a lot more flexible than you realize to be able to do things manually. So like this down here is almost complete basically already. Like if I subdivide it / in a sec, let's get rid of this top edge or top face. Okay. We probably need to bevel this edge, You see we bevel. Let's change it to a profile of 1. Okay. And you can see where that's kind of going now. Like this eventually will go down on Y. Okay. These should merge together at some point. And then that will become, let's try it again. That'll go out on Y. That's your 3 edges. That's the same as a bevel when it subdivides for the most part. Subsequently, you know, we got this corner to do now. Bevel it. Boom. Merge it. These two got to get merged. K, X. We'll go to that next edge. Boom. Let's see how this looks over here. Oh, we cut all the way across it somehow. Whoops. Let's not do that. Right, so I think you're seeing the possibility of a redirect here, like that. So it doesn't go into that bevel. Uh-oh. Come on, Vertex. You can do it. I can select you. We'll do all 3 of them. Why not? Sometimes when you do that, you can get lucky and hit Control-T and Alt-J, and it'll just turn it into quads. You can also maybe do a reduction here, too. Right? Maybe not on this one because it creates a pole back there. Sometimes it's useful, but it might be better to do that reduction up here. Right? For the same reasons we were having issues in the other area. For now, I'm not going to reduce anything. I'm just going to leave it as an N-gon or whatever. So this would end up being beveled as well. And you can see where that goes, right? It goes all the way down to that edge there that we subsequently got rid of, I think, in the backside. We merged it out. It didn't merge out over here. Let's merge it out over here. Boom. Look at that. We got something started at least. That we can take that further as needed. You see the mismatch between these two? Like if this is a level 2, it's just this N-gon's not helping, I'm sure. I'm just going to dice it up for a second and over like that. We'd have to add some edges all the way around, possibly. It can get a little squirrely too, because look, this might end up trying to create spirals. Yeah, it could. We'd have to cancel it somewhere before it goes back around. But anyways, you can see the difference between the sharp corners like this and the rounded ones, right? So if you need to take these and work them out, a lot of times you can try Alt-S in them out, but they might fluctuate like up or down a little bit. So you can always press G and Shift Z on something that's flat. You can just move it. You could vertex snap them to each other if you really wanted to. And that's what I usually do. I get rid of the subdivision entirely. And I'll make things match however I need or see fit. So that whole edge would go G, Shift Z, hold Control snap. Boom. And so we can square it back out that way. Well, let's say we didn't want to do that. Let's say we wanted to keep it round, right? And we wanted this one to round out now, right? If we do Control V and smooth vertices, it might. You might have to repeat it a couple times. It can get close, but it's probably going to go inwards. So that's not usually the ultimate answer there. However, if you select, and run loop tools and do relax, this can usually work pretty well as well. You see, like it's close. It's not quite right, but it's close. On the flip side, you can eyeball it, Alt-S them in, right? You could try doing that, or you can snap them. I mean, really, and then just move them like little by little and do like every other edge and then Alt-S those in. You can, manipulate these things by hand. Like you don't always have to, like Alt-S might not always give you the results you want either, but you don't always have to, like this one on G, Shift X, moving it up and in. If you carefully move them, you don't always have to use like some kind of perfect solution. You can just eyeball it too. That's what I'm trying to say. So we can go on Y, out to there, out to there. And so how would I deal with this corner here? Well, because we know we're going to start running back up into that area. I'm going to try this, although I don't guarantee it's going to work. I'm going to do an inset. All right, a manual inset. Like that. Send it back out the other way evenly would be nice. So it doesn't go all the way back through the shape. You can see it does fluctuate that edge a lot more than I thought it was going to, but it does. And so we could probably get away with a loop cut right up to there. And we'll do another loop cut there. We'll do some loop cuts inside here. Would probably reduce some of those edges. I'm taking a guess. So is it going to look right though? That's the question. Does it look right with that topology doing that? Personally, I don't think it looks great. And in order to work that differently, we would want to shift, if we are going to go through the top here, we would want to shift these edges to go through that top. So I like to just knife cut where I want things to go sometimes. Like I want this at the top, and I want this one going to the bottom of that top edge, right? And the stuff here in the middle, you know, I'll just dissolve it out and leave it as ingons and just messy topology. Like maybe we want to do something like that. I mean, it's a possibility. Maybe we want to move all of these edges up at some point as well. So that's more up here. You see what I'm saying? So like you don't always have to like use what you first cut necessarily. That's what I'm trying to drive home here. Like if you think that inset technique is looking ridiculous, it's not going to work out for us, don't use it, you know? That's the main thing. Like it's just not going to work. Get rid of it. I'm going to get rid of all those too right there. Oh, and we'll just GG twice these up. These are verticals, so that means it should work out fine, right? And now I can do 2 loop cuts in here. Join here to here. Join here to here. That might look better. Who knows? Might look worse by the end of it. If I can get a hold of the selections, that would be great. No, wrong one. Blender. All right. Shade it smoother real quick. All right. So yeah, we got a little bit of like a faceting effect right here. It's kind of like a weird shading, if you would. Usually reductions help solve that problem. The set flow add-on can also help, but sometimes it makes things worse. Let's try set and flow. You can see it wants to really move down just a little bit further. Is that going to help the shading a little bit? Kind of. We just reduce it up, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, you can run into some hairy situations sometimes with the topology that, you know, it's just, maybe it's too much or whatever, but I don't know if I'd go for that one. I think spacing this out a little bit more and just very carefully manipulating it would probably be our best bet. But yeah, that's how you're going to get that sharp kind of edge basically for the most part. And I think moving these forward would probably make that look a little nicer too for that little edge area. You see, we can kind of like blend it out almost. If we space these, like we'll get just a little bit of a nicer result in that area. Yeah, balancing it all definitely is going to be a tricky process, but it's doable. Very tricky process. If you can't get the topo to look exactly how you want, you could try, you know, using a plane in this area and doing like a retopo of your mesh here and getting a more evenly distributed kind of bevel going on or whatever. I mean, there's times that you might do stuff like that. It's just, you know, you're going to run into all kinds of situations. Now, for the most part though, these don't have to have matching topo on the top half and the bottom half. If it's a straight edge, and you can add like all kinds of detail in here perhaps later on. Like if I do a couple loop cuts and we have to do that little cutout in here at some point, you see what's going on? Like as long as we get it close enough. Well, I mean, like as long as that edge stays flat with all these edges running into each other, it's not a big deal. So like I can inset, hit O to turn off that, hit B. And we could scale that in. grab here to, well, you know what, actually, let's just line those up a little better. These corners here, let's bring these ones in like that. We'll just assume that's the center. This, you know, we can eyeball it. We don't have to necessarily do anything special, or we could try set loop tools and relax. Maybe do it a couple times or something. You know, maybe that works out better to relax it. We'll do one time. It's close, not quite right, but it's close. Probably would have helped if I had that in the right position to begin with, but let's see how it works this time. Yeah, still not quite right. So if you ever want them absolutely symmetrical, I mean, it happens. You're going to want something symmetrical. You see, we have the same topo on each side, basically, right? Like, it's the same thing. We might keep that one scaled out, perhaps. Actually, this would be tricky because of the little cuts here as well. But let's go for it. Let's just say, for the most part, this is what we want. Right here. Like this side. So we can delete this side. I want to make sure there wasn't a bottom face there, edge. Yeah, there's not. Okay. You can take your mesh right here. I'm going to show you. Most people don't know about this one, so it's useful. You can duplicate it. So Shift D to duplicate, right click, Control M, and then in our case, we can hit X, Y, or Z if you need to. And then we can just duplicate it like that. We can use vertex snapping and snap it out to there, perhaps. Or we can snap it to there. You see? We can do a number of different things like that. And because we had auto merge on, for whatever reason, it merged that side and then it moved all of that over. I didn't know it would do that, but it did do it. So there we go. So we can just kind of snap these out to it. You can see they're backwards. All you got to do is select them. Sometimes it's easier said than done. You might have to go on the inside of it to select them. Alt-N, flip, boom, right? So we can make things match, basically, is all I'm getting at. And we can make them basically perfect if needed. And so for this one, I'm going to inset hold control, boundary select, bevel, pull up, boom. So next subdivision, we'll get that. At some point, this whole section, I might fill it and just inset it a bit. I don't even take it all the way through. I just do things like that half the time. So this edge here, at some point, should be a loop. I can get a good selection on it right here. I can bevel that very finely later. We can do that for this one as well, but we'd have to work out the edges on the top side there. That's going to be more challenging since we already pushed that in. But for the most part, it's the same idea. You can kind of do an inset and make it happen. But a lot of times you'll find that you want to be very purposeful with seams of objects that meet together. You'll probably just extrude edges in, more than likely. Set the depth. And then that's when eventually you'll go around, like after you do the whole shape doing that, you'll go around and bevel everything possibly after the fact. So you don't have to worry about pushing things in and solidifying them right off the bat necessarily. That's kind of like a final touch in my opinion, but you see it's getting pretty close to matching. It's not perfect, but it's definitely close, right? Like you can imagine this whole section here being pushed inwards at some point. We'll just extrude it and scale it for a sec and move it, right? So you can see like if this was all beveled now, just a tiny little bit, 2 segment maybe, boom. We would be in business here with this for the most part. I think we have a discrepancy here though. Yeah, see there's no edge here for this side. So we would definitely want to create an edge going down in that direction at some point. And that should, in theory, notice we have a lot of extra edges we would have to do. We'll just loop cut them for now. Yeah, so when they start matching resolution a little bit more, Like, you don't have to make them like perfectly match, but you need to have, like, especially near the bevels and everything, they need to somewhat kind of match with each other, right? This is going to make it all meet up closer and nicer. Usually. / a sec. See, none of these went inwards, so it's looking nasty. Yeah, and this is the process, all right? So basically, you're going to keep going with just working subdivision this way on these kind of objects a lot of times. Like the bottom section here, we still didn't, do this little piece at the bottom. Not really a big deal. By the time you work out some of the base shape there, a lot of times this topo is going to agree with what you're trying to do. So you could do like an inset, hold control, inset, boom, inset again, whoop, ES. Can't inset past a certain point. You can see how that's starting to work. These are little slight rounded corners here. They're not so squared like mine is. Back them up, balance it. That's all you got to do. That'll round out that corner a little bit more now compared to what we originally had. If you need it more than that even, just go for it. Just get them going. You definitely do that. All right. And last but not least, all these little pushed in sections like this, you could try to do them right now. I think I would recommend prepping the mesh with nice, even topo as much as possible. I don't know if that's messing up the other side. It's not. Okay. But if you can start making the topo more predictable, I would say, you'll have a much better time with stuff like that. Because eventually, you end up with some loop cuts. You hit E and F. Oh, why is it not turning straight? What's going on here? This should be flattened out. So I should be able to hit E and F. Okay. Push one out to there. You see how like these ones are going to be somewhere in this area. We're going to dissolve those. So you probably should do that when looking at them. Just make sure you have the right amount of cuts. Just support that geometry that you're going to create. It's a lot of cuts, guys. It's going to be a lot. And you can't just as simply inset this stuff as you think you could. It doesn't really work out that way. You have to select every other one. So if you don't do the right amount of cuts, you're going to just be off, basically. And you can see that's a little bit of a pain. You're going to inset these and then push them down. So inset, hold control, push down, right? Good odd chance you're going to do that. But look, we had a detail in here that doesn't do that, right? So like, what do we do in this case? Well, we can see clear as day that this area, like that one still exists. We don't get rid of that one. But this area here, we got to rework, right? Let's not do those out there. Let's control X. Let's see if that helps. Nope, we'll just delete them. All right. Yeah, all this stuff in here we don't need. So if we already did it by accident, we'd have to go through, clean it up, have fun with it, but we're going to have to clean it up. And all I'm going to do is try to fill from here to here. So we're going to have like bad topo for a second. So I'm going to grab those two edges, Control E, bridge edge loops. Hopefully it works. We get this kind of a result. Okay. And so we can probably add some loop cuts in there. Like so. You see what's going on now? I don't want to get too carried away with doing all of those extra cuts because we're going to need that one, that one, that one, that, there's something going on here in the middle. I want to see what's going on in the middle first. Okay, I'm just going to cut out the exactly what I need, basically, where I think it should be. You see, I didn't line everything up perfectly. So, I mean, we're guesstimating at this point on this one. I want to do something like that, but it keeps snapping to the center. Let's try it again. And I want a little bit of a section here. I'm going to want that there, maybe. Let's join that for now. Merge that to there. Oops. I just wanted to dissolve that. I think I'm going to get rid of this one and do that. Just run it out to the top. Yeah, so let's realign that because I think I moved it too much. All right. So this whole section at some point is going to get dipped inwards. And we're going to have to mirror this also locally. Which I'm already not liking that idea, but let's just cut from here to there. All of this in here, we can select. Yeah, I'm going to delete those two for the time being. And I'm going to borrow this, duplicate it, mirror it, flip the normals, bring it out and over, press Y if it does. Oh, we got auto merge on, so when we mirrored it, it does all kinds of goofiness. Here, let's do auto merge off, duplicate, right click, Control M. I use middle mouse click usually to do that. Mirror real quick like that, flip it, vertex snap it on X to, yeah, somewhere over there. That's fun. We can just try our best to align all those to the top. We'll combine it together later. These should join. We'll dissolve that one for temporary. Yeah, it'll be something like that. All right. We can go in. We can inset, hold control. Oh, not that one. Okay, why can't I get rid of that one over there? Yeah, I guess we just got to do that real quick. And let's dissolve this one through here for just a second so we don't have to worry about it. Yeah, you can see we got like an extra edge over there that we don't have over here. So I'm just going to loop cut it through. You have to be careful. And when you split it like this, you don't have to be as careful. If you did this as a solid object, you'd be going all the way through your mesh, right? So it'd be terrible. But we should be able to combine those two if it'll let me. There it goes. 2 loop cuts in there. Okay, you see, like it's possible, man. That's the thing. We can work this stuff out. We're getting there. I'm really just wanting to make sure that I'm going to get the shape I want by the end of it, like this area. And so far, by the looks of it, we'll be okay to do that. I'm just going to extrude it down, and I'm going to scale it, and I'm just going to move it down as well, like this. That's all I'm going to do for this. I just want a slight little taper here. That's it. And a bigger one at the top, I think, looks nice, right? Because it matches, obviously. And then, yeah, you'll bevel this later. You might even bevel both sides of it, but it'll be a little finicky on this one because you might need a bigger bevel than what we have over here to work with. So you might have to, you know, like that could work, but then we ended up with a sharp bevel at the bottom. So, you know, you have to bevel in kind of orders and, you know, think about what you need out of your mesh sometimes. We need a big bevel there at the bottom. Great. So later on, we can boundary select, do this, Alt Shift click, unselect that. Now we bevel here. All right. Maybe we do that number. And then that got too big. Like, so think of it like this. We could overextend the bevel, turn clamp overlap off if you had it on. We want to extend it over just enough that we can get a hold of it again. You see? So like we can shift H, hide everything. If it's like we're having a hard time getting a hold of it, we can just rock it forward now, GY, Alt H. We might get away with doing some stuff like that. Our corners are still pretty soft. They need to be very sharp. Extra loop cuts probably won't hurt. We can combine things back together later on, or we can do reductions and cut in the right spot. You might be able to do reductions if it lets me. It's not cutting. All right. And the only reason it does that is because look, these are not technically connected to each other. So it's trying to connect. It's trying to cut on this edge, and then when you do the next cut, it's trying to cut on the other side. It doesn't work. So yeah, but you could try doing reductions like so. You could fill these maybe, and you'll see that these don't look quite right. Maybe there's a possibility they don't. I think they'll work out ultimately by the end of this, but let's get rid of this reduction real quick. Let's see what happens if I just grab these like this. You see they go all the way to the other side. I'm just curious what would happen if I grab them like that. And if I try to bevel them real quick, what happens? Boundary select, bevel. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would actually work. We would have to get rid of these additional edges here, which is not what we need. So these are already beveled basically, right? Yeah. Whoops. So you can see we got to just match the topo over here as well. That's the inset topo, right? So it's not that crazy actually. That edge would go to there. That would be a quad. That's actually the topo we want anyways. So it's good. You can merge those out. Boom. Just like that. This would probably get an extra edge down. That would dissolve. We have quads. And we'll just cut that out again. And we'll do our merges. Of course, these are not connected, so those are pains sometimes. All right, we'll just do that. Cheat the system. By the way, using machine tools, you can merge much faster with the setup, the shortcuts that machine tools has. It's just like a SmartVert, right? You can just merge with SmartVert, which is usually 1 or Control 1 or Shift 1 or something like that. Control 2 will rotate edges, and you can collapse edges as well. I just forgot the key for it. I think it's Shift 2. No, Control 2? No. Shift 1? Oh, Shift 1. Okay. That's 1. It might be different for you because I customize them slightly, but it only really turn off a couple things that I don't want to use, like offset edges, and then that's it. These things here, like if you can get away with shifting sometimes, it's probably better. Like you could try doing another edge loop cut if you needed to, but shifting sometimes is super useful as well. And then because we shift it so far, we got to balance this one, you see? So like we can get these kind of results going. And that's the thing, right? Like it just, you have to spend the time on it. You have to really think about what you're doing sometimes. It helps to have a lot of experience with it, obviously, but if you don't have all that experience, you'll get there at some point just by doing this, by practicing it. I kind of want to get rid of this edge here for some reason. We'll cut it out. I know what I want to do. Cut it out and merge it to there. Because slid the whole edge. But anyways. Not this one, this one. All right, just these two. Just extrude it down. Hey, boundary select, chamfer. When you're doing high to low bakes, chamfer or add a taper to everything. A little bit of a bevel or a little bit of an edge like that. It just looks nicer. It's going to work better. But you can see where that's going now. Like we can do a lot of stuff like this very quick. Very easy. We really want to have, I think, all of these extrude at some point. 3, having 2 edges in the center so we can control the curves on the edge. And you can see why I did it all this way now to some degree. That's so I can get basically this going here, right? That's going to have to go possibly all the way through, but we can do a reduction at some point with that. I mean, it's not, we don't have to do that all the way through. I feel like I'm off center here. I think it should be in the center. That could be a problem. Yeah, so make sure you're right on the money with your references, basically. Otherwise, you have to shift things. It's not impossible to shift things around either. Like, it's just straightening everything back up that's annoying. Like, we can grab the whole area and shift it left or right, right? So it's not impossible to do things like that, obviously. But the question is, looking at this, it is a little bit asymmetrical, isn't it? I think I'll leave it with the reference for now. Oh, this gets more fun. Look at the little cut here we need. Yeah. I'm not going to go through this one. But the main idea, like, I'm not going to do all of it. We'll end the video after this. But the main idea is that, like, we're going to have this little area like this. Right? And there's a good odd chance that it's going to be a pain. But you can see it didn't even cut all of it the way I need it. Join to there, join to there. It'd be nice if it did, but it did not. Okay, so we'll try our best just to do a section of this maybe. Yeah, so those are all like out of alignment for some reason. I don't know. All right, we'll fix it. This is going to be, I think I would delete it, to be honest. I think it'd be better just to delete it and do this. And then go through here and just vertex snap these back together, perhaps. And so doing this whole shape like that is, there's probably a better process. Like if we had maybe separated the pattern, like the door cover first, and then added the pattern to it, might have been faster or easier. But if you ever find yourself in these situations where you didn't do it first, and you know, it's not the end of the world. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, we can keep going through here. I'm trying to make this work out. Why it decided to snap there, I don't know. But yeah, this is the process, guys. Sometimes you got to do it. Personally, if you're making a game model, and I think a lot of you will be, so a lot of this can be done in Painter, perhaps. Or you can use like alphas and multi-res and sculpt on it and stuff. There's all kinds of just different little tricks. Why does that one go up? What's going on here? Oh, AM merge by distance real quick. Still is not merging, is it? And if you want to merge very close together the things, you just bump it up the tiniest amount and make sure you're not losing anything. Because, yeah, 4 vertices is, that's all we should be looking at. It's like 4 verts through that. Do AM merge by distance and set it back down to completely low as it goes, so you don't have to mess with that later. All right, I'm just going to loop cut that for now. Yeah, but I think you get the idea. Once you do that number, like, we're looking at a lot of stuff that needs like loop cuts, and it's almost automatic to some degree. Like, it feels like it is anyways. As long as you have n-gons at the end of things, so like, you know, make an n-gon if you need to, do it kind of local, and then, you know, fill that back in with quads or reduce them or do whatever you got to do. But don't let it like scare you that, like, a lot of times, like when you get into subdivision, when you see really complicated stuff, it's like really scary when you're looking at the geometry. You're like, oh my God, I got to do all this stuff. How do I even manage this? And do it in little patches, you know, don't do it all as like one go. Just tackle or focus on one thing at a time. Like, this is on a curve, right? like, oh no, this is on a curve and we need to sharpen these areas down here. And so now we're at the wrong resolution for this curve, right? And that's true. That's something you can run into. There's all kinds of fun stuff like that. Fortunately, you might get away with first creating your NGON, doing a loop cut locally. You could try doing something like set flow, right? And see if that works. And you might have to set flow on the next section and the next section until you get something a little bit more dense that you need. It might work out. It might not. It might change your shapes too much, right? So there's all kinds of like little weird stuff like that that can happen. It's just, it might happen, all right? Personally, I don't know if I like what's going on here. And doing these edges at this is why I was kind of trying to mention it before. And I like to do the base shapes first, like the big base shapes, apply a subdivision, and then do this smaller stuff. It just seems like it goes better for myself. But it might go, you might have to deal with this anyways. That's all I'm getting at. In this case, just a couple knife cuts from here on Y. It won't go into those crevices now, right? So we run into that issue. That's where your loop cut definitely is going to help in there. Quads could be useful. I would probably grab that whole area, that whole edge. I would eyeball it more than likely and just try to do this number. Does it always turn out perfect? No, absolutely not. But it's a doable thing to some degree. I don't want to keep reducing that one. I don't think that helps us. So I'm going to join that back. We'll just do it to there for now. Yeah, we'll keep running that. Yeah, so I do things like this all the time. I don't know. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's right. Who knows? I figure it's kind of normal. Because I'll have to increase the bevels here on the side is more or less what's happening. And because we had this extra one here, it kind of already is increased anyways. I mean, it's not the end of the world to do that. The biggest problem is that these now want to run into something like that area. And how do we even start to make these make sense, right? You can Alt-S, get them about right. Boom. You can see there's a little bit of fluctuation occurring in here now, right? Sculpt tools, guys. Smooth tool, set it to surface smooth. And just click a few times in that area. It'll actually smooth some of that stuff out. If you go too far with it, don't do it on the end poles like that. But if you go too far with it, it'll start to make it look worse. Okay, just keep that in mind. But a lot of times it will smooth things out and make it look nicer. And it actually fixes the zebra stripe problem if you run into that. So that's pretty dense there compared to over here. So we got like a mix match of resolutions anyways. You know, it's just working. Just keep working it. Eventually you'll find that this is not impossible, basically, to do this whole mesh. And I'm going to tell you, go look at the marketplaces and see how these artists that are selling these things, they're selling Gameboys for like $50 or so, right? With subdivision, go see how they put them together and tell me that they're much different than this. Right? They're going to look very, very similar to this, but, you know, finished, obviously. And so with that in mind, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it helps you out if you are trying to tackle these more complicated projects with subdivision. If you're making game models, guys, use floaters if you can too. Save you a lot of time. I'll put it that way. But, you know, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already subscribed. And then just tell me what you think about this one in the comments below as well. Curious how you guys feel about modeling to this kind of level on the channel anyways. So I'll check you guys out later and enjoy the rest of your day. All right, take care.